Appreciate it.
Hey everybody, it's Ryan with another episode of Grant Teach Me Something, which goes like, Grant Teach Me Something! This is Season 2, Episode 2, and what we're going to be talking about is the Part 2 of Sub2. So stick around. If you have questions, be sure to drop them in there. This is all about the dialogue, the back and forth, and the Q&A aspect of it. So stick around, we'll be right back.
Teach me something.
What's up, everybody? That was your cue to say what's up.
Hey! I didn't know I was on camera this time. What's up, everybody? Even though clearly we were told, like, we're going to be coming back on the camera with, hey, hi, hey.
Sorry. So if this is your first time watching, one of my passions in this show is whenever he says something
Making
that's
me feel like a
almost
terrible
funny,
person.
is to make him look like a jackass.
Yeah, well.
Because it's not that funny. Anyway,
You gotta be good at something.
Grant Kemp, Ryan Harper, Grant Teach Me Something.
How's it going, y'all? I'm Grant Kemp from CreativeCashFlow.com. We're the investor who wants more, gets it. And this is our weekly partnership between Creative Cashflow and Propelio to come and teach you guys some cool stuff.
Yeah, and this is part 2, so if you haven't seen part 1,
Go see it
go watch it.
after this.
After this.
So one of the things I introduced last week that was a great idea from Ryan was after season 1, his thought process was, hey, look, how about we start doing a little bit more of like some mini-series, to where we can kind of build on ourselves, and I think that's good. It'll be good for everybody to try and take that foundational aspect of it, because season 1 was just kind of like me driving in like, guess what we're gonna talk about today? Like,
that clearly is not the case of season 2.
that's clearly not the case of season 2. Clearly. So last week what we did is we covered like a bunch of abbreviations that might get thrown out, right? What are some things, some abbreviations that you might see a lot? Sohail actually reminded me of one that was on our comments of last week's video, which, by the way, reminds me to say, please comment on this stuff. Even if you're watching this on a replay, we monitor that. Tag us. If you've got a question, I'd love to answer you. So, tag us, comment on it, we'll come through. But Sohail was like, what about UL? Because I say UL all the time when I'm writing that, and that's a great one. So just as to finish up on that side, UL
I know what it is.
was UL.
Underlining lean.
Underlying lean. Yeah, girl.
Did I say lining? I
Lining.
meant that one.
Yeah, underlying lien. It is and lien, by the way, L-I-E-N, being a lien, being a debt on the property. So what we're doing is we're kind of building off of that from last week. We're going to build today on some knowledge about what Subject 2 is, what owner financing is, how that kind of stuff works, so that as we continue on in this season, we'll have a little bit better of an idea of what we're looking at and how this all works.
And quick shout out, I see Colby K is watching. Colby K, he's a big social influencer out of Phoenix.
What's up, Colby?
He's making his way into more of a real estate. Colby, this series with Grant, the Grant Teach Something, if you want to really just mind meld of owner finance and Sub2 basics, this show Wednesdays is the place to be. So thanks for tuning in, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good to see you. Good to see everybody. Everybody that's watching. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is I'll tell you, this has been really encouraging for me personally. Over this last couple of weeks, I've gotten so much feedback from you guys that are going out to the Propelio Academy, watching our videos on how to do the owner financing stuff, and just coming in, and I'm getting it's just so cool. It's so cool to meet everybody who's doing deals and coming in and be like, dude, I just finished this deal up, and I would have never been able to do it without these Grant Teach Me Somethings and that kind of stuff. So please eat it up, ask us questions, and we'll do everything we can to help you get to that next plane, right?
So let's get to that next
So
plane.
let's get to that next plane. So I hope that a lot of you were there last night at the Propelio event. It was an awesome event. Had some great costumes with our Poopelio here, and which, without seeing the Winnie the Pooh hat, sounds like it could be a very different costume, Poopelio.
Yeah. And it is funny. Again, we'll get to the meat of it real quickly, but I do want to say thank you so much for everybody coming out. It was rainy and crappy for like 3 days straight.
Yeah.
So to have the amount of people we had was great. There were still about 300 people, which was awesome.
Totally.
Which is, and again, is so funny because I'm like, crap, we only had 300 people.
Which that's like the biggest.
It's still the biggest one in North Texas, but it's like when you're used to like 500, it's like, why does it have to rain?
Speaking of rain, what a fantastic transition into our first talking point.
Ooh.
Owner financing. You will hear us talk owner financing and seller financing. You'll hear those two terms thrown out a lot. Those terms are umbrella terms. Those terms, owner financing, and you'll see me abbreviate that a lot as OF, and seller financing. Seller financing and owner financing are the same thing. It's a synonymous phrase, and it's an umbrella phrase. Now, within that phrase, there are going to be different strategies that are also owner financing, like Sub2, which is really short for subject to, which is you would put that in quotes.
Right.
There is also gonna be like wraparound mortgages, right? Wrap mortgage. And then there's like your free and clear owner financing, okay? So the umbrella, because it was raining, there's our, see the transition, you get it?
Well, real quick, I'm glad you talked about the semantics of it. In real estate, as you're in this little world for more than like a day and a half, you will get more and more and more confused until you realize that each term, each word, each definition can really describe 3 to 4 different things. Because when you talk about show me the HUDs, it's like, what do you mean? Well, what does HUD stand for? Housing, urban development. Oh, shit, what does it mean?
You're right. Housing and urban
but
development.
it's like, but you said paperwork. Yeah. But you also meant this department. Yeah. You also meant this type of house. Yeah.
Right.
And it just, those type of things goes on and on and on. So even subject to, subject to, in our world here, what we're talking about is subject to the underlying lien.
That's correct.
But it could also be subject to you fixing the damn roof. So, I mean, I don't know why I'm getting violent and aggressive with that, but that's fix the roof. Fix your roof. Yeah, what I'm saying is, in this world, the semantics is Sub2. We're talking about the owner finance in that world.
Totally.
But Sub2 could literally be Sub2 you fixing the foundation.
Right. Exactly.
Sub2 whatever.
Yeah. So subject to, you're exactly right. That phrase, it just means that we're buying it subject to something happening.
Right.
Now, again, in this world when we're talking owner financing, and if your context clues lead you in, subject to, or sub to, more specifically, is implying we're going to buy the house, we're going to leave the mortgage in place as is, and we're going to continue to pay those payments on our seller's behalf.
And that's why you need to fake it till you make it, until you understand what you're talking about. Like in that conversation, not like long term, but like, oh, okay, now I'm
right, get the context clues to figure it all out. Yeah, for sure. So we've got these umbrella terms, owner financing, seller financing. They mean the same thing. Within that world, you've got Sub2, you've got wraparounds, you've got free and clear owner financing, and those are all pieces that we need to understand after watching Grant Teach Me Somethings, after watching the Propelio Academy, right? And so this is what we're going to be building out this season. Is we started with a bunch of the abbreviations and baseline knowledge bits last week. Let's start with our baseline knowledge bits on the owner financing today. Now that we understand that seller financing and owner financing are basically are the same thing, and that there are different strategies within it, let's talk a little bit about what owner financing is in general. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start assuming that we're buying a house that has zero debt on it at all. This would be a free and clear owner financed home, because that's going to be the most simplified version of what seller financing is. And so it's going to help us to understand the principles of what we're talking about here, okay?
And as always, if you have questions, drop them in. We'll monitor them live and on the replays. And while you're tuning in, let us know where you're from, what state, what city. If you're watching live, if you're watching on the replay, blah, blah, blah. We like engagement.
Yeah, absolutely. Please engage with us. We like talking to you. And I promise not to use that accent while I talk to you digitally. So with a free and clear owner financed house, that's going to give us the principles that we can stand on. Okay, so let's talk about what that is. What is owner financing at its core? Owner financing at its core is going to be basically you're going to sell a house and also be the funding for that house, also be the bank for that house. Okay, so let's look at it like this. In a normal transaction, you're going to have a house, and it's, you know, this wonderful house here, and it needs to get sold. And so we've got Joe homeowner who wants to sell their house. They got 2 little kids, nice little orange family, and they want to sell their house. And so then you, the buyer, are going to come in and you're going to say, I would love to buy this house. And so you go under contract with them, and what happens is the buyer will then reach out to a bank. I'm going to make them green because they got that money, and I'm going to make it look like a jail because debt is jail. Really, that's a terrible drawing. And
disclaimer: we're not attorneys, we're not financial institutions, and we're not artists. And we can't write good.
We're not artists. Yeah, that's true, man. My handwriting, my artwork is rough. It's pretty. I apologize to you guys all up front on that. So what happens here is you go to the bank and you say, "Hey, bank, I want to buy this house. Would you lend me the money for it?" And the bank is going to say, "Cool, I'll lend you the money for that." And so you create with the bank a mortgage. Okay, and that mortgage here in Texas is going to be made up of a deed of trust and a note. Now the note says, hey, Joe investor owes, you know, at 5%, $80,000 for the next 30 years, the buyer, right? That's what the note says. It's the terms of the loan. The deed of trust says if this person does not pay the bank the terms of this loan, the bank can foreclose and take that property back from them, okay? So that's
the security instrument.
The security instrument. So the deed of trust is the instrument that allows them to foreclose. That's important to understand, the note and the deed of trust thing, because we're going to employ that same tactic, that same strategy in our portfolio. You know, I mentioned this last night, and a lot of what we were doing last night is going to be what we're talking about today, because we're trying to build everybody up kind of together. Let's get these foundations built up together so that we're all on the same page. And I said that and I completely lost the point of why I was saying this. Deed of trust.
Disclaimer, he doesn't think good neither.
Disclaimer, I haven't slept very much in this last week. All right, well, whatever. We're just going to go on that.
Well, real quick, you know, because this question gets asked a lot.
Yeah.
Especially now that we've gotten a bigger and bigger audience. Lease option versus owner finance. This is from David Zuniga.
Okay.
But then also Jared Weaver, he drops in a comment right after that, and he says lease options are 99.5% illegal in Texas. We don't touch the strategy unless you are an attorney.
Yeah.
So like lease options, I have like negative percentage experience.
Experience, right.
I
do lease options, I do rent-to-owns all the time. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that is actually one of the legit things that I like to talk about in this session, in this like let's build on subject to and owner financing, because so often they are, what's the word I'm looking for? Like they're not, it shouldn't be, but it is compared very closely. People are like, oh, you're like, oh, I do owner financing. And they're like, oh yeah, I know about lease options. And they're two completely separate things, two completely different strategies. Now, the lease option, with the lease option, the way that works, and I'm going to say lease purchase, lease option, rent to own, I'm going to use those synonymously. There are minor differences between each of those strategies, but they're minor enough that for the purpose of what we're doing right here, I don't really feel like it's, you know, you don't need to know that. So with a lease purchase, rent to own, whatever, the way that works is you go under contract with somebody, they become a tenant for a period of time, and within that period of time, they need to satisfy some other kind of requirement before, before you're able to, or before they get the deed to the property. With seller financing, you're getting the deed to the property on day one. Okay, so that's a big difference right there, a major, huge difference. Now, Jared was correct that 99% of the time, and I won't say 99% of the time because I think that's too high.
Majority.
the way that most people want to do lease option, I'll put it that way, the way that most people want to do lease option, yes, it does become challenging. Now, in Texas, you have a 6-month period, 180 days that you can do the lease period before it needs to convert and you need to give that person title or deed to the property. Let me step back even one step further and explain that, since we're talking foundations here. We can talk about deed, like like Ryan was saying, subject to can mean, hey, I'm going to buy it subject to you fixing your freaking roof, or it can be, I'm going to buy it subject to the underlying lien staying in place. Deed is another one of those words, okay? Mm-hmm. So a deed is what actually gives ownership of the property. Let's actually hit this whiteboard one more time. I promise I'll tie this all together here. Is when we go through this example, the buyer goes and gets a mortgage and a note and a deed of trust from the bank. What happens here is the seller is going to give a warranty deed. Okay? They're going to give a warranty deed to the buyer. That warranty deed is what transfers ownership of the property. Okay? So when we say deed, we might be referring to the literal piece of paper, the warranty deed, which there's a couple of different types. There's a warranty deed, a special warranty deed, a couple different things. Or you may just straight up be saying, who has title to this property? Who has the deed to this property? In other words, who is the owner of this property? Okay? Take that one step further. I said title, right? I said, who has title to this property? And you may be thinking, wait, how does that... So there's title companies, what's the... Right. That's another one of those things, right? It gets confusing. I understand how hard it is to get into this industry. Trust me, because we got into this industry.
But that's why I always say, not to cut you off, but that's why I always say the best way to learn this industry is full immersion, watch videos, YouTube, read books, and just go, 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 go. Mm-hmm. That's the best way to learn. Because again, there's no way you're going to pick up on all those semantics of all the just randomness, right, unless you just pick up in those conversations. Mm-hmm.
So just to finish that thought, title can say who has title to the property. In other words, who has ownership of the property. In other words, who has the deed on that property. But title can also be referring to, like when you go to closing, you need to search title. You need to see that the chain of title has occurred. That means the person that's selling you the house actually owns that property. So title can also mean like a title search. We're looking to make sure that deeds were properly given from one person to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So, sorry, I've like sidetracked. I've got 3 layers. I'm like an Inception. I keep going one layer deeper and deeper. So we're coming back up to the start.
So you got to take notes.
So, right, exactly. So Jared's point, saying, hey, lease options are hard to do in Texas. They are hard to do in Texas. Within 6 months, that person that is leasing, you have to give them deed to the property within 6 months. Now, you can go over 6 months. You can go up to 3 years in Texas on a lease purchase, a lease option, if you have written requirement from the underlying lender and you jump through a bunch of other hoops. Now, the part that I'll disagree with Jared is he said stay away from it unless you're an attorney. I'm not an attorney. I use it all the time. But I use an attorney to make sure that my paperwork is done the right way. Lease options are a very viable option for some specific instances, and we'll get into that into some of these later episodes, right? Because we need to build to some of more of this advanced stuff. That's going to be one of the things that I'll tell you down the road as an advanced strategy, is another way to make sure that you're fully capitalizing on every lead that you have. Lease purchases can be great for you. Now, I think we're in the second to first level of inception here at this point in time when I say that's for Texas. Outside of Texas, the majority of states do not have the contract for deed states or laws that we have. Now, in short, the contract for deed laws are what restrict us from doing lease purchases here in Texas. Outside of Texas, lease purchases, contract for deeds are an excellent strategy. It is the way you should be doing things on your sale side, is through a contract for deed if your state allows it. But just to go to show how important it is, if you were there yesterday, you heard me on my soapbox for a minute. I'm going to get back on my soapbox right now and saying, guys, we're in a really cool point in history right now, because what you're seeing is this massive wave of energy and new investors and people that are watching these Propelio videos that share a vision, that share our why, that want more out of this situation, and we want to do things the right way. It is up to us to change what a real estate investor is perceived as. It is up to us to not be snaky and trying to get things past anybody and doing things the right way, especially when it's not in our best interest. That is something that we can all do together here, right?
Real quick, you're talking about out of state and all these other things. This is my opportunity to say, consult your attorney.
Please consult your attorney. We are not attorneys. We are not CPAs. I do a lot of real estate investing. I've consulted with attorneys, but they were engaged by me. You know what I mean? It's like you need to do your own due diligence. Trust but verify.
And real quick, I don't want to detour you too much from getting back to the original point. I do just want to give a couple of shout outs to people on YouTube. Looks like we got Mick, Dominique, Jesse. Mick is from San Antonio, Jesse from Norfolk, Dominique from Memphis. Jesse, there's also a gentleman on Facebook who's from Norfolk. Let me see his name, Matt Sadith. So if y'all don't know each other, I mean, Propelio is all about connecting each other, so maybe one of y'all should jump on Facebook, one should jump on YouTube, and y'all should connect. So, because real estate is all about networking.
It is. It really is. You know, I do personal mentoring, subtle plug, and a lot of my students, you know, they're always asking how to get deals, and they want to know more and more about the marketing side and whatever this might be. And one of the consistent things that I train people and try to get through to their heads is networking, man. Networking is where you get so much done, from private money to deals to just whatever it is. And I'll tell you, that one is, nobody ever wants to take me up on that one. Nobody ever wants to pay attention to that as being important. They just want to know how to send out a piece of mail. And that's not how it's all done. Mailers are great. Direct mail or direct marketing in any form is great, but you've got to get in front of other people that are doing this business. I feel like
real estate investing, especially beginners, is like that what is it, Idiocracy movie, where people are like, I like money, like that. Like literally, it's like, because that's me. It's like, I don't care what strategy, I just like money.
Yeah,
so
totally.
Anyway, are we back to like one or two?
So now,
or are we back to
now
zero?
I think we're back to the original dream.
Do you even know what that was?
Yes. Hold on,
nice.
let me get my totem out. Where's the nobody look? So. Back to where we're talking about this model of owner financing and what that looks like, right? I think we're back to, I hope I didn't skip any of them. We went pretty deep there. So let's hit back to our whiteboard here. This is what our traditional financing is going to look like, okay? This is our traditional bank model. Oh, I did skip a level because I remembered the thing that I wanted to say. So the thing that I wanted to say is, and I mentioned this last night, this is where I lost my train of thought earlier. We've seen the banking model, the mortgage model work for almost 100 years now. Mortgages as we know it were really created back in the 30s. I don't know if you guys realize that. It's a fairly recent-ish invention. But we've seen this model work for a long time. And last time I looked at a Bank of America or Wells Fargo income statement, which was, I guess, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, something like that. So it may have changed. But they were making 95+% of their income off of mortgage interest. That means that every CEO's golden parachute, every Super Bowl commercial, every bank that's on the corner, and every employee that's rolled their eyes at you getting paid $15 an hour has been paid for off of mortgages at 3.5%. And what's the going rate for a mortgage and owner financing when we sell it? Do you know?
In Texas?
In Texas, yeah.
It's whatever that, I forgot what it's called, but it's whatever the adjustable government mandated thing,
APOR,
plus 3 or 4%. So you're high costs, but not predatory or usury or whatever it's called.
Yeah. Everything that you said right there. Have you ever seen those? Have you ever seen those lottery tickets where literally every number is one off? That was super almost accurate. Yes. So
I'm just saying, like, say the government rate is like 8%, you could go up to like 11% because you don't want to go too far, or you're an asshole.
Right. You're very true. So
thank you.
We'll dig deeper into that. You can't spend 6 months selling me out on jokes and not let me say. We'll get more into like the complications of how to determine those interest rates, like what he was talking about. He's referring to something called the APOR.
That's what I said.
APOR plus 8.5. That's what you want to stay under. But I'll shortcut this for just our foundational knowledge of understanding and saying that Right now, it's about 9 to 10% is what we're charging on owner-financed mortgages to our end buyer, okay? So if every CEO's golden parachute, every Super Bowl commercial, all of that stuff has been paid for with mortgages at 3.5%, and we get to charge 9.5%, don't you think that this is a good strategy worth us looking into? Right? Just because the banks have a bunch of money does not mean that that's a strategy that's exclusive to banking. We can look at that strategy that they have created and say, how can we employ this in our strategy, in our portfolio, to give us the kind of financial security that these CEOs of Bank of America have? Now, granted, I'm not going to act like I'm going to teach you how to go out and have the same financial security as freaking Brian, what's-his-face from the CEO of Bank of America, but I am going to say that with this strategy, with that exact train of thought, that is how I went from being a guy who, I've said this too much recently, but I've never really told my story before, but, my grandfather was an oil rig worker. I grew up in a 1,000-square-foot home with gang signs tagged on the front of it, right? We don't come from money. And when I started real estate within 5 years using this strategy, I was a millionaire. That's the kind of stuff that you're able to do with real estate, right? So let's look at that model. Let's look at that and how we can translate that into our own portfolio. That is the thing that we're trying to do here. So if we want to hop back into our whiteboard, this is our traditional bank model. We've got a warranty deed that goes from the seller to the buyer. The buyer gets a loan from the bank. Now, one of the things that we must keep in mind is that there's another bank down here, isn't there? Because our seller owes money to their bank. They have a deed of trust down here, and they have a note down here as well, okay? So actually, you know what I'm going to do? Let me erase that. I'm going to try and color code this to make this a little bit easier for our next slide to understand. So I'm going to make that
Science.
I'm going to make our seller's bank purple, because why not? Because I only have so many colors.
Why you gotta be smaller?
Because I don't have a good reason. Thought I could come up with something. So our seller owes their bank money. So what happens when we're buying this is that the bank, when the buyer buys and they say they get funding from their bank, well, their bank is going to send money to pay off the underlying lien, right? They're going to send money to pay off the underlying lien, and any money that's left over is going to go straight to the seller of that house. That's how traditional transactions work. Now, we are going to change and look over at how a owner-financed transaction may occur, okay? So let's look at another just very basic model of this, and let's say that our seller, what's our seller's name, Ryan?
John.
Skirt. Our seller does not have a bank loan. Our seller just owns this house free and clear. So let's draw that side out. Okay, so our seller has this house free and clear. I'm going to try and stay with the same colors so that we can make this make as much sense as possible. So they have a house. Gosh, I'm so good at drawing. Aren't y'all jealous of my artistic ability? Mm-hmm. So here's John. He's our seller. And he wants to sell the house to you, the buyer. Okay? Now you were blue over here, so I'm going to make you blue over here. But there's no debt on this property, right? He owns this house free and clear. That's what free and clear means. So when they give...
Wait, did you just say he owns this house free and clear? That's what free and clear means? Did you just find free and clear by saying it's free and clear?
Well, because 4 seconds ago, or right before that, I said he has no debt on the property. He owns it free and clear. That's what free and clear means.
I just heard
he has no
you
debt.
doubled it, and I'm like...
Isn't that the worst when you look through the dictionary and it's like, what does, I don't know.
Anyway.
Abated mean? Abated. To abate. I'm like, well, yes, I get it. Okay, so the seller gives a warranty deed to the buyer, right? What does the warranty deed do?
It warranties the deed.
It gives ownership, thanks. That's what in comedy we like to call a callback. It gives ownership to the buyer, i.e. you. But instead of you going to a bank and standing in front of a banker with your tax rates out and all that kind of stuff and getting a loan from them, you're going to get that loan. So what did we make it? We made it green, right, for our bank. Instead of doing that, you're just going to give the seller a note, and a deed of trust. Very simple there, right? The seller gives the warranty deed to the buyer. The buyer's then going to sign a note that says, okay, seller, I owe you $80,000 at 6% for the next 20 years. And then the buyer is going to sign that deed of trust that says, and if I don't pay that money, like I said I would pay it, you get to take this house back from me. So in this case, with owner financing, the seller is not only the seller in orange, but it is also the bank in green. So this is our owner finance model. Does that make sense? Does that illustration make sense to everybody? Mm-hmm. So let's build off a couple of more things, okay? Let's get a little bit into some more of just kind of how some of these things are set up foundationally. We're going to get a little bit more into the technicalities here, but what this will help you do if you pay attention to these episodes is that later on down the line, when I start giving you some more advanced strategies, if you don't understand some of the in-depth technicalities that I'm about to say, you won't really have the foundation to build on to understand that advanced thing. So I know that this is going to be one of those things that I'm about to say where you're like, okay, yeah, whatever, I don't really care about that. And I get it that you probably don't right now, but if you pay attention to it, you're going to be able to do some more advanced stuff later on.
Yeah, and that's why I always say full immersion, jump in, watch as many videos, take it all in. But before we get to that, and before we get to your question, Mark, he was asking, can you quickly explain a quitclaim deed? We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. So keep the questions coming, keep the engagement going, and we'll be right back. And what are you about to talk about?
I'm about to break down what everybody's role is in each type of document in a transfer of deed.
So we'll be right back. And we're back.
Haha.
Just like that.
Woo. Okay, so I just want to address. This is how you like introduce back from a commercial break, right? Is you say, I don't know. Quitclaim deeds aren't really valid in Texas, so I know I see them out there, but that doesn't make them valid. I've had somebody file a. Oh gosh, what did he call it? I don't know. People file crap all the time. It doesn't just because it's filed doesn't mean it's real. Quitclaim is one of those things in Texas. So I don't know.
But it's on the internet.
But it's on the internet. Yeah, other states quitclaim deeds work. A quitclaim deed is my understanding of a quitclaim deed is basically the ability for somebody to. It's kind of my understanding is close to like a deed in lieu of foreclosure. It's a way to sign the deed over to somebody really quickly. Letting go of your claim to that property. But again, not something that I really know about. We would want to consult somebody like maybe Matt Aycock would be a good guy to answer that question. He's got law offices in a couple of different states, so he might be able to answer that question for you better. But part of being a good educator is knowing when to admit I don't know something, so that you trust when I tell you that I do know something.
And Mark, I'm going to copy this question, and we'll get to it to the end. I don't want to. I am notoriously bad at detouring Grant from what he's trying to get across, but I'm also notoriously bad about saying, give me more meat. So I'm going to let him continue giving us meat, and then we'll get back to you at the end of this.
Perfect. Okay, so let's look at the roles of each person in each of these documents that I'm just talking about, okay? Again, boring, but I'll try to do a little jig for you while we're doing this. Okay, so a deed of trust, okay? Deed of trust. If you look, because you can search title. Title is a public, you can go to your public records, the county clerk, and look up these documents. The warranty deed, the deed of trust, those things are public. When you're doing that, you're going to see a couple of different roles. You're going to see a grantor, which is my nickname, right? Or a grantee, which is my little son's nickname. Because it's like a little tiny version. So grantor is going to be the person who's giving something. Grantee is the person who's receiving something, okay? Now, a deed of trust is the borrower signing something that says, hey, I'm going to give you the right to foreclose on me if I don't do what I said I was going to do. So the grantor is going to be the buyer. Okay? The grantee, and actually it's not called a grantee, it's called a, but it'll show up as a grantee on your title search. The grantee is going to be, it's really called the beneficiary. Let me go ahead and just write that down. Beneficiary is going to be the lender. Oops, I should make that green. So our lender is the one receiving this. Gosh darn it. The lender is the one receiving this deed of trust. The lender is one that's receiving the right to foreclose. Now, there's another role that's in the deed of trust as well. That role is called the trustee. Now, the trustee is another player of the game, and that is the lawyer slash attorney. Now the trustee is going to be the person who is actually going to be doing the foreclosure. Okay? That's going to be the person who's reading the document out on the courthouse steps. One of the reasons why I want to bring this up to you is that one of the great lists that we have for buying houses, which Propelio.com will offer for you, which I used to pay big money to people to research for me every day and pull up, but now I don't. I just use Propelio and they provide the list for me, and that's who I market to, is an appointment of substitute trustee. Because here's how this goes down. For instance, I just had, I'm closing on a house this week. Matt Aycock, who I just mentioned, created the note and deed of trust for me. Well, Matt Aycock is the trustee on that deed of trust. But when it comes down, if I have to foreclose on that person, it may not be Matt Aycock that's going to be the one that actually goes out and does that foreclosure. He's running a very large firm. He's a busy man. That might not be him. So he might appoint one of his attorneys in his firm to be the person who actually handles that foreclosure. Well, in that case, they have to publicly file a piece of paper called an appointment of substitute trustee, which lets us know that a foreclosure is about to occur. And that is one of those great lists that Propelio.com provides for you, is everybody who has an appointment of a substitute trustee filed, they're about to get foreclosed on. So why don't we start marketing to that person and try and buy that house, right? Mm-hmm. So a deed of trust has your grantor, your grantee slash beneficiary, and a trustee, okay? Important to know how that works. Then you have a warranty deed, okay? So on a warranty deed, or you'll see it as DT.
And as he's writing, it's getting a little quiet on the comments, people. We got some people watching.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
It's all about interactiveness.
If you've got questions, please let me know.
Even if you don't have questions and you just want to say we look good, I want to hear that too.
You look extra good. Did you know that? What brand is that jacket, Ryan?
I don't think it has a brand.
Let's show him the brand.
His name is
No,
Q.
not that side.
Oh.
Yeah, look at this.
The Ryan Harper.
Can you see that? This fool has a jacket that says Ryan Harper and the freaking. That's what happens when you're baller and you look good, Ryan.
It's the
custom
Q Custom Clothier out of Dallas.
Okay, so on a warranty deed, who would be the grantor of that warranty deed, and who would be the grantee of the warranty deed? Let's look back, and I want you guys to comment on
finance? I wasn't paying attention.
Well, I want comments from the people watching. Right? Who do you think is going to be the grantor, and who do you think is going to be the grantee in this deal? If we go back to our original picture here, this is our view of a seller giving the warranty deed to the buyer, right? So if you were looking at this, who do you think is the grantor? Do we have anybody commenting yet on who they think that is? I know we've got a little bit of a delay, so I kind of...
Tennille, she says you, the grantee. Grantor, you, grantee, seller. And then somebody else saying grantor being the seller. Mm-hmm. So it's a 50-50 split.
50-50 split. Well, the somebody else wins. Somebody else is correct. The grantor, the person giving the warranty deed, is the seller. The person receiving the warranty deed is the buyer, okay? So again, we look back at our original picture here.
So grantor, seller, grantee, buyer.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Grantor is going to be the person that's giving a document. Grantee is the person receiving it. So the seller is giving deed, right? The seller right here in this transaction is giving the deed to the buyer. That's how that's transferring over. Therefore, when we look at our grantor and our grantee, we know that our grantor is the seller and our grantee is the buyer. Okay? So that is something that's good for us to know because we're going to start using that later on down the road for our own purposes.
I'm sorry. It's just when there's a funny comment, you got to read it.
I want to hear it.
James and Sherry, give me that deed, yo.
I think that's the proper technical.
Yeah, give me that deed.
Yeah,
yo.
that's what a quick claim deed is.
Okay, give me that deed.
Give me that deed, yo. That's how that works out. So this is our free and clear seller finance transaction. Okay, you again have the seller who gives the warranty deed to the buyer. They are the grantor, right? And then the note says, okay, seller, I'll pay you the money that you want over this period of time at this interest rate. And the deed of trust says, if I don't do that, you have the right to foreclose on me and take this house back. This is a good stopping point right here to kind of take some questions.
Okay, well, let's get to Mark's question. He has a house, aunt died, no kids, one brother, one sister. Sister passed away. Brother in California don't want house, but the daughter of the sister that passed wants it. How can he give it to her? I'll let you read.
Thank you. I was following you for most of that. All right, I have a house. Aunt died. Aunt died. No kids. So, okay. No kids. Well, like, why do I care who the aunt is? Like, I guess that's the question that I'm trying to figure out. Who's the owner of the property? Why do I care who the aunt is? So, I have a house. Aunt died. No kids. One brother, one sister. Sister passed away. Brother in California doesn't want the house, but the daughter of the sister that passed away wants it. How can he, a new player in the game, give it to her? I'm going to say that I need more explanation of this. Okay, so A, I need to know who owns the house. B, in all fairness, this really doesn't have anything to do with anything that we're talking about, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, and I don't mean to be offensive with that, but I do want to be clear that these are, deal analysis is a big deal, okay? I don't think that people properly respect what deal analysis is, and I don't want to be, by all means, I don't want to be rude in saying this, but I have people all the time that are like, hey, Grant, can you just look over this deal for me? It's not that easy. It takes hours to properly analyze a deal,
right.
And to get things done the right way. And this isn't necessarily the forum for let's just sit here and do deal analysis. If they're quick things that like have answers that I can get to quickly, I'd love to help you on that. But the proper forum for that, the right time, if I can subtly plug for that, is that every Monday night at 7 p.m. for all of my members on CreativeCashFlow.com, I do a live Q&A where I answer any random question that you've got about real estate. This kind of stuff, that's where that's really best suited, right? Is so that we can get to those things there, because I do want to get that answered.
So basically, Mark, what Grant is saying.
So I will, I'd love to help out with this, but there's not enough information there. We need to know who the owner of the house is. It doesn't mention who the owner of the house is, and then I'm gonna guess that it's the aunt.
The aunt owned the house and passed away.
Okay, and then it technically goes to the brother, and the brother wants to give it to his somebody. Can I see that one more time? I'll try to. Knowing that the aunt is the. Okay. Have a house. Aunt died. Who was the owner? No kids. One brother, one sister. Sister passed away, so the house goes to the brother. Brother's in California, doesn't want the house, but the daughter of the sister that passed wants it. How can he give it to her? He just needs to deed the property to her. I mean, that is so. If and again, this is why this. So. We've got to know if there was a will involved or if there wasn't a will involved.
The gist is, how does a guy in California give a house to a niece? It's just a deed.
Just a deed. Yeah, I mean, you just have to deed it over to them. Get it, basically going through a real easy
contact Matt Aycock and hey, draft some papers up.
About $450, $600 for something easy like that. But it does need to go through some sort of probating to get the proper title over into the brother's name, because if there was a will that gives it to the brother, perfect. If there was not a will, then that falls under something that's called intestate succession, which we actually defined last week, if you're curious what that intestate versus testate succession is. And at that point in time, you're going to have to do something that's called an affidavit of heirship that gives property title to the brother, and then the brother can, from that point in time, deed the property over to his daughter or whoever it was.
Matt Smith has a good question, and it's a good question in the sense that when you look at it, you're like, well, that's obvious, but there's also underlying things there. The question was, could you explain why people buy notes? And I will throw in there, why would somebody even sell a note?
Yeah, that is an awesome, I love that topic. You know, that's one of the topics that I plan to get into in depth further down this road, but it's a really good topic because what we've done here in this situation is created a note. Okay, we've created a note. Now, I want to have this hit home for us a little bit easier. So I'm going to transfer these roles here. Let's go one more step further and say that you own a house, free and clear. Okay.
Which means it's free and clear.
Which means that it's free and clear. You, the investor, own this house, and you're apparently about to do a cartwheel because you're leaning at a 45-degree angle. And so at that point in time, you want to sell it to a consumer. So you're going to sell that property to Joe home buyer, right? He's got his family. He wants to own it. And you sell it to them with a, so they give you the note. You give them, or I'm sorry, other way around. You give them the note. You've got a deed of trust. And they have a warranty deed to that property. That means that they own it. They're paying you on a monthly basis. You're making the money off of this. Okay, so we're switching the seller to be you. That's all we're doing. So now that you own this house and they owe you, and we're going to say that this note with you is a $90,000 note at 9.5% for 30 years, which means that your payment is going to be $756.77 every month coming in for principal and interest. Now,
you've probably done that math before.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm just really good. I've got an internal financial calculator.
Yeah, okay.
I can just amortize things in my brain. So let's say that you've got that note with somebody. Well, that's great tomorrow money. You're making $756 a month for the next 30 years. But let's say that just some ridiculous opportunity comes across and you need $60,000.
And you liquidate.
To go buy something, right? Well, you can sell this note on the secondary market to get that quick cash out of it. And note sales are an excellent way to make money. I love note sales. I sell maybe 3 to 5 notes a month. They're a great way to, if you ever have a note and you want to sell it, I'll buy it. We buy notes, we sell notes. It's a great way to make money because what happens here is you're going to have a note buyer, somebody who wants to buy that note from you. So, 9.5, 30. So, what's going to happen is basically, for today's purposes, since we're not doing the full note class, you're typically going to be selling this note at like somewhere between 85 to 93% of what the actual value of that note is. So, if you've got a $90,000 note, you might sell it for, let's say, $81,000. And so, I might buy that. I'm going to say, hey, look, you've got a $90,000 note making $756 a month. I'll buy that note from you so that they owed the money to me instead of you, and I'll give you $80,000 or $81,000 for it. You get cashed out. You get to go spend $81,000. I get a note that meets my yield requirements. It's a great way to do things. Scott Carson is a good resource for note purchases. Eddie Speed is a good note resource. Definitely look into that. It very much complements what we're talking about in the seller financing world because we are creating notes, and notes in and of themselves are a very marketable, saleable asset.
And speaking of this is another tie-in question. Sean Robertson, do you use your personal name or entity for the lender on the deed of trust? And the reason that's a good tie-in is, when you're selling and transferring and whatnot.
Yeah, do not use your personal name for anything you're doing in real estate at all, ever, period. No, don't use it.
Quick, it's not a plug, it's just a shout out. Claire Coggins, she helps us out with some of these videos, like when we go out and do the interviews. She owns a pit bull. You know who owns her pit bull?
Her?
an LLC.
Really? That's
She
awesome.
has an LLC that the only asset that LLC has is the pit bull.
Wow.
Like, how smart is that?
That's funny.
Is the fact, because, obviously pit bulls, they get a bad rap, but if anything does happen.
You have a pit bull.
I have a pit bull too, yeah, but so it's like, but I'm not smart enough to protect myself by giving my pit bull to an LLC. Because the thing is, if my pit bull bites you, you could sue me.
Yeah.
But if you can't sue me if it's owned by LLC.
That's really funny.
Rhino.
I love the how LLCs are considered an entity, right? I love the story of this one dude who drove in the HOV lane constantly with his LLC paperwork in the passenger seat, because he's like, if y'all want to give LLCs the same rights as humans, then that means that I've got a human in my other seat and I get to do my HOV lane.
Does it work?
It did not work. He got fined. So yeah, note sales are awesome, and we will get into more of note sales because I love that strategy.
And Tennille, she agrees. Keep assets separate. I guess. Yeah.
Do we have any other questions?
No, but how about we take another quick break?
Yep.
And then we'll give people opportunity to jump in the comments, jump in any more questions. If there are no more questions and no more comments, then it's just us riffing and plugging the shit we want to plug.
We'll bring it all home right after this.
I meant to stop dropping S-bombs. My bad. Anyway, we'll be right back. Grant just said he was going to teach us how to make money. So
I like money.
I like money. So show us how to make money, Grant.
So here's how we'll tie this all back together, because hey, this is awesome strategy that we've talked about here. But how do we bring it home? What is this really making us, right? So I want to get you excited. We're talking technicalities. And by the way, that's the whole thing about this, is that we want to reinvent what the education space looks like. Right now, the education space is a bunch of guys who haven't done anything since 1993 or haven't done anything, they've done 20 deals and they're trying to act like they know how everything works. And they're going out there and charging you $997 so that they can train you how to pay them $20,000, right? That's not what's going on here. We want to give real information. So I know, hey, we're talking about some deep stuff, some technicalities, but guess what? We're talking about real stuff that's actually going to make you money in real estate. And the best favor that we can ask for in return from you guys is to spread the word. Let other people know that there's a new player in town, that there's a different way to get this done, that you are learning from somebody who's put over $80 million worth of owner-financed mortgages on this in the market, and we're being an open book and training you how to get that done.
Speaking about open books and real money and real players, do you want to do a live call with Kelly on how to negotiate for your transactional funding?
Right.
Well, she was texting. She's like, live caller.
That's funny.
She's like, I tried to call him. I'm like, we're live.
I saw that she tried to call me. I was like, oh, I'm sad she doesn't know that I do this.
You can throw it on speakerphone and be like, I want this percentage.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would be
bad for either Kelly or me.
Because there's no upside.
Right.
You either look bad that you can't negotiate, or she looks
or I make
good,
it look like she.
Or she looks bad by giving you a deal.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
nobody wins there.
No
but Kelly
wins.
Smith, good girl. You want to chat with her? So here's a perfect example of what.
She's a woman.
Oh, shut up. Me too. What, I can't identify? What?
First of all, she had a badass costume. She dressed up as me last night for the.
Did she? I didn't even see her. That's funny.
She was just black shorts, black shirt, and like a beard.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. No, but that's a prime example. I would not know Kelly if it were not for the networking that goes on through Propelio. And I've got a deal right now where, like, it doesn't matter where you are in your career. I'm fairly far along in my career. But I've had my lender kind of screwed some stuff up on a deal that it was supposed to close today. And so now I'm in a spot where I'm like, well, crap, what am I doing? Well, Kelly does transactional funding. I know her through this stuff. And so I'm going to get some transactional funding for her so that we can get that funded. We can get our sellers cashed out of that the way that they want to get cashed out of that. And then just whenever my IRA person's money clears out is when we will be able to finance back out of that. But
so speaking of money,
Speaking about money, let's look here at how much money you can make on a deal like this. Now, again, we're talking about basics here, right? We're building our foundation. So I'm going to act like you own this house free and clear. Next week, what we're going to get into is how, well, I said today was subject to. Next week is really how we're going to be building into what happens if there's already debt on the property or if you need to create debt on the property. This week, we're just building the theory of owner financing. If you owned this house free and clear and you sold it to this homeowner, $100,000, you get a 10% down payment, so you get $10,000 up front. You're going to have a mortgage with them for $90,000 at 9.5%, 360 months, which is 30 years. That means their payment is $756.77. If you look at the total income that you're making off of that loan over 30 years, you're getting $273,193 with 97 cents. On a house that was only worth $100, and you got a 10% down payment up front, so add 10 grand to that. On that house that's worth $100, you're turning a $283,000 profit. That's a lot of money. I like money, right? The other cool thing about this is that in this scenario, let's look back at our traditional model, right? This is our traditional model right here with a bank involved and, lenders, all that kind of stuff. We're going to say that this bank is, we'll say Bank of Appalachia. And so in this question, I want to know, the joke I always make is, do you have a mortgage on your house, right? Do you have a mortgage on your house that you own? And if the answer to that is yes, I always make people raise your hand. Keep raising your hand if you've ever called that mortgage company and told them that your toilet was leaking or that your faucet was broken or whatever that might be, right? They don't care. You pay your payment on the first, and if you don't, you lose your house. That's how it works, right? So as somebody who's becoming the bank in owner financing with a strategy like this, you are able to take that same strategy where you don't have to mess with tenants, toilets, and trash. And you're turning a deal that was only worth $100,000 into a $283,000 profit, right?
Yeah, and the thing we always talk about, I think you brought this to light, was you never see anybody getting rich by owning rentals. The only people that get rich by owning rentals are the people that were already rich and then they bought a ton of rentals.
Exactly. My stance is, because I think one of the hard parts about getting started in real estate is that you see all these strategies and you see all these people that are already successful in real estate, and you look at their portfolio and you say, well, that must be what I need to be doing, right? It took me a long time to figure out why everybody was so enamored with rentals, which, like, I get it. There are benefits to rentals. That I have rentals. I get it. There's tax benefits, there's appreciation. There is stuff that goes on with that. But don't buy rentals counting to make money on that rental. Unless that rental payment is twice that of your debt payment, you're probably not going to make any money on it. If you're in a position where you've bought rentals and it's purely just going to sit there and you're like, this will make me money whenever it's paid off, that's when you can buy rentals. What Ryan is referring to is I've finally figured out and formulated that people saw rich people had rentals and assumed they got rich off of rentals. No one gets rich off of rentals.
Right.
You get rich, then you get rentals. So we talk about strategies like this that give you today money, give you net worth, give you cash flow. Do not take the responsibilities of being a landlord. You're still going to do wholesaling. You can still do your fix and flips, all that kind of stuff. Build that portfolio. And then when you're in a place where you're marketable to get good rates from banks and can start taking down rentals, start taking down those rentals. Start getting that benefit from that. Do the buy rent or the buy rehab, refi, repeat models.
So like today's market, I'm going to try to sound smart, but probably look dumb. Like right now, especially the North Texas market, is probably ripe for the owner finance market. As far as taking down rentals, it's probably best to liquidate because you're going to get at the top of your whatever you're going to ever get for it.
Yeah, when you're in these...
And then when there's a trough or a crash, it's not going to be a crash, but more of a correction, that's when you buy up all the rentals.
Totally. Absolutely agree with
Did
that.
that sound smart?
Right now is a cash-heavy, use your cash strategies in a market like this where we're so stupid hot. Now things are slowing a little bit in certain areas, and we need to be cognizant of that. But yeah, these are cash-heavy strategies right now. You're wholesaling, you're fix and flips, those kinds of things work well. Now, days on market are starting to last a little bit longer. Maybe you can't push your 82-cent purchases anymore. But yeah, man, I hate to say it, but I am anxiously awaiting that correction because I'm gonna go out there and just Pac-Man it, just mop.
So Taylor from YouTube, did you say last night that a Sub2 double close is illegal?
So in Texas, when I say that double closing is illegal, and again, I'm not an attorney, I can only mimic what attorneys have told me. So we've got an A to B and a B to C transaction, right? We're acquiring and we're selling. You cannot use B to C money to fund an A to B transaction, okay? There have been title companies that will do that. Whatever. You can't do that. But there are some creative ways that you can get around making this work. And that's one of the things I mentioned earlier is like, hey, if you get a 10% down payment over here and you need that 10 grand for purchasing on this side, maybe you get your buyer to give you a $10,000 non-refundable earnest money. So that's a check that you can cash that's all yours, and then you use that for your A transaction, and it just is credited to your buyer, right? That might be one solution for that side of things. But yeah, be careful with you funding an A to B transaction with your B to C transaction. Consult your attorney, consult your title company on that.
Yeah, because I know hypothetically in the past, it used to always be double closes like that, like the title company hook you up. But then after the Nancy Carroll thing, it was get yourself some transactional funding.
Who, Kelly Smith, I figure maybe if I name drop Kelly Smith enough times in here, maybe she'll be nice to me whenever I call
I've
her.
never used Kelly for transactional funding. I've used Mike Hanna, Paul Starnes, and Bestmark.
Cool.
Shout out to them as well. I'm not saying either or.
Of course. There's plenty of business for everybody. and that
or
just goes
SF
to show,
Lending, they're good guys.
It goes to show exactly what we're talking about in sharing all this knowledge. We're sharing real deal knowledge. I can charge a lot of money for the knowledge that we're sharing with you, but it's not scarcity mentality. There's enough business for everybody to go around.
Quick shout out. I didn't catch their names because it was the middle of the night and I was super tired. We had a couple guys from Tulsa, Oklahoma at our event last night.
All right. That was a great time to tell us that story.
No wonder our shows get the explicit. Anyway,
Do you have any more questions?
Yeah, there's some. They call it a good faith violation in the stock market. That's from your buddy.
Oh, nice.
A good faith violation. Russ Keith, 400,000 plus will be slowing down some. The builders are catching up to the demand in this segment of the market. Yeah,
the higher end homes for sure. I cap, so like here in the DFW area, our median is I think 248 or something like that. I cap my houses at 250. When I'm acquiring a property, I don't acquire properties whose ARV, which you can learn what that means from last week, is over 250. That's where I cap, because that higher end market, it is starting to slow down. I'll steal the words from Scott Horn, who is a business partner of mine for the last 6 years up until a couple months ago. We split, but he talks about the Walmart theory of real estate, which is if you look at there's these $1 million homes, and then there's the $500,000 homes and the $200,000 homes and the 100, and as you get further down in this pyramid, there's more and more and more and more people who can afford this segment. So that market is always very marketable. Call it the Walmart theory, because Walmart keeps it cheap, keeps it big, keeps it bulk. There's more and more people who can afford that. Fewer and fewer people can afford the Whole Foods or the Sprouts or the whatevers, right? So we kind of subscribe to that Walmart theory of real estate, where it's like, let's do the thing that most everybody can cover, because that means that we're going to be able to get rid of our houses no matter what market we're in.
But you can also apply that to as an investor in general, in the sense that everybody is used to these strategies, and the more you can get creative and the more you can expand what you're doing, the better off you're going to be, and the more
Absolutely. More tools
the
in your
more
tool belt.
ammo you have to take down these properties. Grant, what is Creative Cash Flow? What's that plug? What do you do? Let's hear about that, and then we'll fade out.
So CreativeCashFlow.com, like I say, it's where investors who want more get it. We are there to just further educate. If you like my teaching style and you want to see more of that, I've got our module up on propelio.com/academy. You can watch through that stuff. But there's going to be nothing. Everything I'm filming from now going forward is exclusive to CreativeCashFlow.com. We've got a negotiations masterclass that is being uploaded right now that we'll be releasing this week. I also do personal mentoring. So if you want to learn more and learn more directly from me, and like I mentioned, we do live Q&As every Monday night, check out CreativeCashFlow.com. It's stupid cheap for the online access. It's $6.50 for a lifetime membership, which is about to go up whenever the new modules are uploaded. So if you want to get in, it's better to get in sooner than later. And I'd love to get to know you guys further from that point.
And Christina, thank you for watching. People love my ET.
I do love that. Your grandma made that?
It says Ryan 1983 on the bottom.
That's so cute.
I don't know if y'all can see that.
She's so good at it.
You know, so that's why it's here. It's because my mom wanted it out of the house. And I was like, I don't want it. And then I saw the bottom of it. It's like, damn, that's from 1983?
Yeah.
I'll take that.
That's legit pottery work.
I don't know if she pottered it or just painted it, but it has my name on it. And it's dated, so that looks cool. And it's kitschy and it's fun.
Right.
And our monkey was from our last flip that we just picked up. That hopefully
that was in there?
That was in the garage. Trey and I were filming everything, and Daniel, and that was like the guys that were cleaning up. It was in the garage. I was like, that's going on set. As far as Propelio.com, if you need access to off-market lead lists, if you need access to true MLS comps through a broker's website, if you need to have, and you do, an investor-friendly website, Propelio.com. As Grant was alluding to, Propelio Academy, Propelio.com/academy. We are uploading stuff every single week, just dropping nuggets. Right now we're in the beta, so there are some bugs. So please get in there, and if you find those bugs, email academy@propelio.com. That's it on my end. Anything on you?
That's it on my end. I love having you guys here. Look forward to next week when we're going to dive more into the subject too and start building upon our knowledge so that we can all be working together as advanced investors.
Yeah, and a quick plug for the next show. Tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock Central Standard Time, we got Corey Thompson coming in for Redneck Real Estate. And then this afternoon, I actually have a whole host of lovely women to come in to discuss our Friday show, which would be Boss Babes.
Nice.
And it's going to be said like that. Boss Babes.
Boss Babes.
Anyway, we'll see you next week for Grant Teach You Something. We'll see you later, guys.
See ya.
Teach me something.